Yeah. I don't know what happened.
I was like, I went, and we're live now, by the way.
Okay, hi.
Hey, we're both purple in the background, sister.
Yup, yup.
It
I
is
was
all
so
good.
confused. It's all good. Hey, friend.
Hey, sister, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be chatting with you. I'm glad that, technology just loves to keep stuff interesting. So, yeah.
Oh man, totally. Because I was like on the back end on TikTok, I'm like, yeah, y'all, I'm trying to get a hold of my sister. I'm calling her, I'm texting her. I'm like, now let me check my email.
Yep. I was like, I hit you up on Instagram. And then I was like, let me try an email. I was like, it's a different link. So here we are. It's cool.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That's my fault. Oh gosh.
It,
Okay,
it's
y'all.
all good.
Well, this is the
It's
stuff
all
that
good.
life is made of. Detours,
Literally.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
U-turns and all that wonderful stuff. And I'm so
Yep.
glad that people were able to see that live because speaking of disruption,
This is how we're getting started. That's it.
right. Yeah, I want to welcome in my sister. So, everybody, happy Friday.
Happy
Welcome to
Friday.
Friend and Friends podcast. I have my sister here, Teresa Nieves. She is my circle sister. And not only that, she is a disruption coach. What does that mean?
Yep.
We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yep.
So, Teresa, she works one on one with people and she helps them to achieve their potential. She has you see your own light when you can't see it. And she loves holding space for people. She loves challenging people in their beliefs and then also to help them find their passion in whatever business that they're pursuing. So, sister, I am so happy to have you.
Yes. It's gonna be a snap-filled episode, y'all. We're just gonna be all over the
Yes.
snapping. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh gosh, girl, we have these beautiful conversations because your spirit is so authentic.
Oh, thank you. Yours
And
too. And I feel like we've had that instant vibe from the moment that we saw each other's picture online. Like,
right.
yes. You were the first
Sis,
person I connected with. So yeah.
oh,
Yep.
that's right. We hit up each other. I hit you up on Instagram.
Yep. Yep.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
totally right.
You're my first circle sister. So
Hey,
officially.
don't be Perry. If y'all listening to this, don't be jealous, y'all. No.
Yeah, don't be jealous. We love y'all too. We love y'all too.
So, sis, how in the world? We have a couple topics that we'll be covering, but how in the world did you get into what you're doing now? Because you're known as a disruption coach, and then today's topic we're talking about unfucking our lives and what
Yes.
that means, what it looks like, and the clutter that comes with all of that. So, tell us how you started.
Yeah. So I didn't start as a disruption coach. I have pivoted, I've changed, I've grown, I've evolved into whatever this iteration of Teresa is. But I landed on disruption coach while I was working with a new coach because I was like, I don't know what to call myself. And we all get so caught up on the titles, right? Like, oh, how do I tell people what I do? And the reality is that, like, I like to disrupt things. I like to rebel against things. I want to break down all the systems. I want to burn them down and start all over. And that I think is very apparent in my personality and my vibe and like what I give out, that like I just want to like break through all the shit that's just stopping us from living the life that we want, the life that we deserve, that is like inherently ours. And through my own story of grief and like processing and refinding myself, I just stopped giving a fuck as much as I used to. And I didn't want to keep living a life for other people. I wanted to like own and love mine. And
Mm.
so that's where this work has evolved to. It's really just about disrupting the noise and the stories and the expectations and the obligations that feel forced upon someone, not something that they are inherently wanting to live through, but like feel like they don't have an option. I want to just break all that shit apart and just like rebuild us right back to where who we really want to be, who we really are, and how we want to show up in the world.
And a lot of people still live like that because maybe they don't really know that they're living according to somebody else's narrative, if that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Cause I think, I definitely, so I am a mom, I'm a wife, I have lots of roles, lots of hats, as I know most people do, especially nowadays. And I remember I just kind of like woke up and was like, how the fuck did I get here? Like, how is this the life that I thought I was going to have? Right. Like I did all the things everyone told me to do. Right. Like I graduated high school. I went to college, didn't want to go to college. I wanted a gap year, was told I couldn't have one. So went to college, married my high school sweetheart. We got married, got a house, had kids, right? Like I did all the things that I was supposed to do. And then I was like, and to be very clear to folk, I don't regret things. Like my life is beautiful and blessed. I'm really happy and all that stuff. But also I might have made different choices in a different timeline if I thought I had a choice in any part of it. And I didn't. I was told that's what I was supposed to do. So that's what I did. And every time I wanted something a little different, I was quickly told that I couldn't have that and that couldn't be my life. And I just don't just like subscribe to that bullshit anymore. Like I think anything I want is mine. Is it easy to get it? No. Like we still gotta do stuff. But if I want it, I'm gonna get it. Like that's it.
She doesn't subscribe. If she wants it, she's going to get it. And this is what this conversation is about. Wow. I was thinking like, dang, I wonder what that felt like that day that you woke up and said, how did I get here?
Whew. I could still feel it in my body, right? Like it's not this separate thing for me. It's a part of the journey, right? It's a part of how I got here right now to this day. And did you read the book Eat, Pray, Love or see the movie?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I love that book. I like the movie too, but I love the book. And I remember crying on my bathroom floor in the same way that she was, right? And I was like, well, no one's going to pay me to take a year off of my life to go write and eat and pray, right? Like I got 2 babies. I got a mortgage. I'm going to school. Like where I'm going to go, right? This is like not a thing. And that really, I think it was like the catalyst that started some of that, right? I always say, I lost both my parents, my mom 14 years ago and my dad 13 years ago, just 3 days within the 1-year anniversary. And that completely changed the foundation, right? Changed my identity. I was super lost. And I think it was like, so that was the first catalyst, right? Those were the things that really like set the bomb off. And then I had to like really figure out whatever this life was. And then it was like, I read this book and there's this woman who like completely decided to change her life and like write about it. And I always wanted to be a writer, right? That's like an old life dream, even though I am an author, but like, I feel.
I was going to say, sis, did you write a book?
I wrote a chapter in an anthology book. Yes, I'm writing my own book right now.
Okay.
But it's always hard to own those things sometimes. Still work, right? Still a journey. I'm still on it.
Totally.
But like, I think it was like reading that and I was like, oh my God, like people could just like change their lives. And like, it just kind of broke something open in me. And it was like, I don't regret my life. My kids are so fucking dope. They're like the best human beings in the entire world. My husband is amazing. Not that it was always amazing, but we are amazing. This is great. And I'm like, damn, I think I just want more. And I just don't know what more is. And I don't think I ever knew I could ask for more. Because every time I did, I got pushed back. Right. So every time I wanted a little bit more, it was like, nah, it's not for you. And I got used to that. I just got used to being like, all right, well, I guess it's not for me. So I stopped wanting it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I can go get that. I can do something different with my life.
I love how you said when you mentioned that writing was something that you love to do, but
Mhm.
yet saying it out loud and that ownership, and there's a bit of a struggle inside of there.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've actively been working on, is like taking ownership of showing up in a big way, and not just in a big way, in the way that our higher self like would show up, and not
Yes.
saying that any of the steps that we've taken don't count.
Mhm.
Just the idea of the imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
And telling that inner critic to be a bit more quiet.
Yeah. And like, when I work with clients and my friends, I'm always like, you gotta tell that bitch to shut the fuck up. Like she she's not she's not here for the dream life, right? Like she's stuck in reality. And I got a dream, right? I gotta be excited. I gotta know that something cool is coming up, right? Like sometimes she just needs to shut the fuck up. Like
Oh my God,
real
I
talk.
love this. Well, you already heard Teresa said, tell the inner critic to shut the fuck
Yeah, shut the fuck
up.
up. Like God. Like who brought them to the party? We're not interested. We are not subscribing. Like,
Oh
no.
my God, I love it. I love it. There was something that I saw says you mentioned defining our own version of success. I know
Mhm.
you touched a little bit on that earlier when you were mentioning
Yeah.
how your parents said you needed to do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
How do we define what success looks like for ourselves when we have no clue where to start?
Yeah. So the first thing that I always say to people, and I'll say the reason why I think it's important to define success, and this has been coming up a lot lately. So I know that there is some universal connection to why I'm being called to talk about these things. But it's because like when we're comparing ourselves to someone else, right? When we get into that comparison, envy, and all that other stuff, or we're watching
Yeah.
the Instagram highlights and think it's real life. And it's like, man, I'm just never gonna, like, and then it feels like we're never gonna get there, right? And so,
Yes.
but the reality is that like my idea of what success is could be completely different than who that person is on my screen. And I don't
Mm,
know them. Like, right? I
right.
don't like inherently know them. I know the version of themselves they're showing me and that the
Right.
algorithm allows me to see. Right.
Mm,
So I had to like get out of the whole like, oh, I'm running a race. Like, I'm the only one on the path. Like, I'm out here with a machete cutting down trees. I'm out here making my own damn way because my path is not laid out. Right. So I'm doing the
God,
work.
I really want to highlight that right there, sis,
Mm,
because a lot of us do think that this is a race that we are having with other people, but it is really a race that we're running ourselves, because
yes.
I believe that we're just trying to become a better version. And I'm thank you for that, sis, because
Yeah.
we are just trying to become a better version of ourselves. And I really didn't think about that. Like
Yeah.
how the way that you put it, like, yeah, we are supposed to evolve, but this
Hmm.
evolving, utilizing, like, okay, nobody else is in this room to be this greater version of self.
Hmm.
Hello, sister. There is a, what do you call that? There is a ringing, or when you're in the room and it's an echo.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So all that is echoing back to you to tell you to, hey, become bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And like I learned from someone, I can't remember now, years and years ago, right? That sometimes we're meant to see those things just so that we know that they're possible.
Mm.
Right? It doesn't mean it's exactly for us, right? But if I was
Right.
like, oh man, if what 15 years ago, I was like, man, I wish I could just sit at home and make some videos and like talk to people on a screen. Right? Like,
I feel like you're doing that right now.
right? And it's like back then I would have been like, what does that mean? Right? Like it's just like
Right.
it doesn't even feel possible. And now we know that there are people who call themselves who are content creators, right? Like that is
Mhm.
their job. And
Right.
so it's like sometimes it's just out there for us to know that, like, oh, I could have that if I wanted to.
Hmm.
There's a real possibility here. Doesn't mean it's exactly the same. It's not always meant to be the same, right? It shouldn't be the same. We're different human beings. And as what you're saying, right? Like if we're all just trying to rise up to a higher vibrational version of ourselves, right? Which is really the ultimate goal, I think, of why we're here, is to
Right.
constantly be reaching the next highest level. Nobody else is up there. It's just you. Like, so you don't have to compare. You don't have to get stuck. You don't have to think you're falling behind. Like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now at this moment to deal with whatever it is that's in your path right now.
Totally.
And that's it. That's the job.
Mm.
It is work, y'all. It is work.
Talk about this is because sometimes, we see these shiny things, the work. What is, I guess, when you're starting to have these conversations with people that are trying to clearly define themselves, what does
Yeah.
what does step one or step two look like? And I know
Yeah.
we all start in different spaces.
We do. And this also ties back into like how we define success, right? And how you look at that for yourself. The reality is, first and foremost, you need to know who the hell you are.
Mm.
Not what you do, not how you show up for others, not what you're providing to the community.
Mm.
Like, who are you when you look in the mirror, human being, reflection of human being? And do you
Mm.
like it? Right? Because if you don't, we need to start pulling that shit out so we can start putting back in what we do like, right? So I want to know, can you look yourself in the eyes in the mirror? Right? So I used to not be able to, right? I
I
like,
was going to ask you,
yeah,
sister,
I used to
what
not.
does that look like for you? Like when you
It was
look in the mirror.
terrifying.
No, no, like for who
Now,
you are right now. Yes, like
yeah.
if people can't identify themselves away from their jobs, away
Mhm.
from whatever labels that they have,
Yeah.
what and now they become into a version of being of where you are now. What does that
Yeah.
look like now for you?
Yeah. It it feels, I'm trying to, like, I'm not great with feeling words, even though, like, inherently I have like a lot of feelings. Um, but like, it feels like friendship. Like, it feels like there's
Oh,
there's just like love there, right? There's not, am I, I'm gonna preface this, right? Like, am I completely satisfied with everything in my life and all that I'm doing? No. I don't do spiritual bypassing. I'm not here for rainbows and sunshine only. Like, thunderstorms exist too. So there are ups and downs, right? So not every day is glorious and super exciting, and I'm okay with that. But
mm-hmm.
on the days when I can meet myself where I am and see myself in the mirror and still be like, hey girl, you doing all right. Like, that's the pep talk I think I've always wanted, right?
Mm.
It's the connection with myself that was like, you doing all right. Like, you're still here. You're doing anything. Anything and everything is still right because you're here. And
I,
that's why it feels like friendship, right? It feels like this camaraderie between me and me, because it wasn't always like that.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Um, because yeah, it is difficult sometimes. And yeah, I love the idea of rainbows and sunshines all the time.
Mhm.
But I don't always get this shit.
Right. And so my husband, my partner, is very much a rainbow and sunshine kind of guy, right? He's just like, yeah, everything works out. All of it's going to be great. And I was like, no, bro, that's not. Here's what's actually happening. Here's what um it's gloomy, it's hot. Like, I'm just like, I'll give you all the other weather information. There are no rainbows and sunshine here. And he used to joke with me all the time because I'd be like, because I don't do it as much now, but I used to always be like, man, could I just like live where you live though? Like, could we, like, just like change mindsets real quick? And I was like, but you can't stay in rainbows and sunshine. You gotta go where I go, right? Like, we can't both be in rainbows and sunshine. I was like, that's not how the world works. But
This
like,
is the balance.
right, I was like, this is the balance of it. I was like, I just want a little bit of that sunshine. If you could like pass some this way. And I found my moments. I've gotten a lot more lighthearted about it and found the space. But like, honest to God, I think, especially like being someone in the coaching field, wellness field, right? I do Reiki as well. There's this idea that like people will spiritually bypass you into thinking that your real truths and feelings aren't real. And I'm like, that shit is unacceptable.
Can you talk
Like,
about that, sis? And then also
yeah.
too, let people know what spiritual bypassing is.
Yeah. So I define it as, right, because I'm like, it's probably got more levels to it. But just this idea of like negating away my truth and my feelings because I have to find the silver lining. I gotta
Got it.
find the blessing in everything. I have to be grateful because my stuff's not as bad as somebody else's, right? Like, and it like negates the experience that the person has. It gets like stripped away from them because it's like, oh, yeah, so I suffer from depression and anxiety, right? So if I'm in a depressive episode and someone's like, oh yeah, but it could be so much worse. Like, that's not solving my concern right now. Could it be? 100%. Have that conversation with me when I'm up and able to, right? Like, but in that moment, that's not it. I'm in my sadness. I'm in my darkness, right? And yeah, everybody wants everyone to get out of that. We all want to help, right? There's this thing called a righting reflex. And it's especially around like helpers and people who work with people that we just want to fix stuff, right? We just want to make it better. And that's not how we help people. Like, because when you're done with a person, they go back to their life, right? And so people have to find their own intrinsic motivation. They have to be able to find the will and the strength and the desire within themselves to want something to be different. And so with spiritual bypassing, I always feel like I could be like, oh yeah, things are pretty terrible. And they're like, yeah, but it could be a lot worse. You remember how it was before? And it's like, that doesn't help the situation I'm in right now. So when people are having a tough time, I am there to sit with them in the tough time, right? I'm not there to fix it. I'm not there to throw my rainbow and sunshine on it. I'm just there to sit and experience and hold space for them, right? Show them when they're ready that there could be a path that they can take to a different place and that I can walk that path with them if they need someone to walk it with. But I'm not making it for them. I'm not going to tell them that they should get over it quickly. I'm not going to negate the truth inside them in the feelings that they're experiencing.
Right. So like, to me, if I think I heard correctly, like just really allowing that person to have the expression of what it is that they're feeling and not really trying to change what they're feeling, but being able to hold that space by just being there with them or just being with them. Like we really don't have to say anything. And then once they do feel like they're in a better space, they do have some rainbows and sunshine, maybe we can revisit that conversation. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. 100%. And it's like, I don't want to erase your experience. So it'll be more comfortable for me to support you. That's what I feel like spiritual bypassing does. Like, it's about making it more comfortable for me.
Got it.
Like, I don't want to, I have this quote I used to do in trainings too, where it's like the most compassionate way that we can sit with somebody is to sit on the edge of a cliff with them and not have to fix them, right? Because all we want to do in that moment is fix them and run away, right? Like we don't want to actually feel any of the bad stuff they are. We don't want to take any of that on, right? So we're like, can you just like wrap this up and we can head on back? But the real power of sitting with someone of compassion and connection is, can you sit in that hard space with them? It's not about you.
I call it SIS, sitting in silence.
Yes. Yes, sis. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. That is so powerful because it's like, you breaking up with the boyfriend and then your best friend comes like, let's go whoop his ass. Everything that we want to do to support the friend when that's not what they really need.
Yeah. And we don't always take the time to ask.
Yeah.
Right. We just assume. Right. And so even something that I do with my friends now, right? So first and foremost, when if I'm going through something and I want to call a friend, the first thing I do is like, hey, do you have space or energy for a conversation to like hold some space for me? Right. So that's my way of honoring their time, their energy, their mindset. Right. So if they have the space for it, great. If someone calls me and asks if I have the space for it, I'm truthful with it, right? Like whether or not I can. And then I say, what do you need from the conversation? Do you need me to validate? Do you need me to just hear you? Do you need strategies? Like how can I best serve you in this conversation? And if they know that information, they're going to tell you, right?
Dang,
And
sis.
yeah.
No, please
No, I was
finish.
going to say there's just power in the space of giving people the language for what they need. You
God.
know?
I do that with my best friend, but I ain't never heard of that. What do you need me to do? Validate? Hell no. Repeat that again, sis. Repeat it again.
So do you need to validate?
You
Do
need to
you need
validate?
to, yeah, so validate your feelings, validate your truth, whatever's happening, back you up 100% because you're my best friend. Doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. I'm in this with you, right? To listen
Okay.
attentively, right? Actively. I'm not here to tell you anything back. I'm just here because you need to vet and process this out. Or what is it? Validate, listen, or strategize, right? So
Strategize.
do you need ideas? Do you
Yeah.
need help trying to come up with another way to think this through? Do you need a new plan? Right? Like, because then it also allows the listener to really tune in. Right. So if I know like my expectation in that call is that they don't need me to fix anything for them, then I can be really, really present to feel and see everything that's going on with them. Right. I don't have to kind of be like, okay, cool. You said this thing. So when we gonna make the plan? What's the next step? How are we gonna make it happen? Right. I don't have to do that if that's not where they are.
Right. Oh my God. Y'all, Sister Teresa just dropped some nuggets.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He said to validate, listen, and strategize. I am
Yes.
using that in my next conversation with my best.
Yes. Let me know how it goes. Yes.
I will. I will. So there's another topic that I saw, sis. Authenticity and standing in your own light.
That's one of my favorite things.
Which one do you
I
want to, sis? I feel like both fruits are hanging.
Yeah, I mean, I look at them as kind of integrative, right? So I think that when you're standing in your own light, you are your authentic self, right? Like
Mm.
are inherently who you are and who you're supposed to be.
What does standing
Um,
in our own light look like?
so for me, that is knowing who I am, right?
Okay.
Remembering how dope I am, and living my life in a way that is aligned with where I'm trying to go and what I'm trying to do. It doesn't feel like I have to be a bunch of things for other people or do a bunch of things because like capitalism, right? Like I mean like like shit is real out
Yeah.
here in this world too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't equate it all fully, but I think like the more times that I can show up and know exactly who I am when I walk into a room, that's me standing in my light, that's me being authentic. An example I give, right? So I worked in the nonprofit field for 17 years, right? And I loved the work that I did, but it burnt me the hell out, right? Like I couldn't give anymore, right? And in the nonprofit world, you have to dress a certain way, right? This professional way, which is like a whole other topic. But I remember when I started getting back into doing my trainings after COVID and like because I do a lot of like corporate trainings and facilitate a lot of things. I remember I was talking with my coach and I was like, oh, and I was like, God, I don't want to put on my nonprofit pants. Right. Like, I was just like, I don't want them. Right. And I was so mad. Right. And I was like, oh, I hate these pants. I don't want to put them on. I hadn't had to put those pants on in like 4 years. And so I was like, I don't want to. And I was like really fighting with it. Right. And she was just like, so why are you gonna? And I was like, oh, because I feel like I'm
Why
supposed to
you?
be professional. Like, why are you going to then if you don't want to?
Okay.
Right. And I was like, oh, because I think I'm supposed to be professional, right? And that's how you look when you do these things. And she's like, yeah, but if you showed up exactly as who you are, the person in the room who really needed to see that is gonna see it. Like they already paid you. Like you're already paid. Like you're gonna show up, it's fine. And I really took that to heart. And so now, like, I bought myself a pair of Chucks, and they're moons and stars. So they're just these black Chucks and moons and stars, and I wear them every time I train. And I'm just like, oh,
Love
look at
it.
my new kicks. I was like, check out my new Chucks. Like, because I was like, this is who I am, right? It doesn't matter what else I'm wearing. Like I have a podcast. I had a podcast party. I wore a shirt and I was like, oh, do I dress up? Like, what do I do? Right? Because I did a party. I wore a shirt that said purple as fuck and my Chucks. And I was like, yeah, this is who I am. Like, I was like, this is it. I don't have to apologize. I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to feel like it's not good enough for somebody else. I don't give a fuck. Like, this is for me. This is about me. I've given all the fucks that I needed to. They're all gone. Right? Like, I'm tired. I'm a grown ass woman. Right? Like, I was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And that's not easy to do, right? Like it's actually super terrifying for most people. And so that's why it's like authenticity is really hard to like teach necessarily, right? But I think the more that we can step towards what brings me joy, what actually like feels good in my life for things that I do, like what makes me happy, what makes me feel inside my body, what lights me up. When we can know all that information and then put that into the world, that's when we're standing in the light, right? That's when like all that other stuff doesn't matter because we know who we are inherently.
Thank you for bringing that up, sis, because I was thinking about like authenticity is something that needs to be modeled because really people don't really know what that looks like. And then also too, the spaces that we get invited to, and this is something that I've had to take for myself, is that if we are invited to a room to speak, that means that we're supposed to be there.
Yes.
And so like there's really no other excuse or reason that we need to make for ourselves except for we got the invitation, we're just accepting it, and here we are. So appreciate it. And then also too, if we don't know how to validate ourselves, and this is to the mother side of the conversation, the little ones that we have around us, our children, they're also going to be regurgitating some of these behaviors that we may have, even though we may not want to pass that on to them. They're not going to be listening to what we're saying. They're going to be doing what we do because that's what we expressed and showed them.
Yep.
So, dang.
Yeah. I mean, every day I walk in that with my kids, right? I got 14 and a 16-year-old, and like I'm so cognizant of like what I say, how I say it, how it gets delivered. Did it land the way I intended it to? Because in my household, things were just said, right? Like you didn't need an explanation if nobody wanted to give you an explanation, right? Like if I got smacked or shouted out or emotionally abused, right? Nobody was coming up later and being like, oh, so sorry about that, right? And like, that's all I really wanted. Maybe, right? Maybe. Hindsight, that's what I thought I wanted, right? But like if I step out of line with my kids and I hold myself accountable, sometimes I step out of line. I'm the first one to go up to them and be like, yo, that wasn't about you. That's my bad. Like that the way I just spoke to you was unacceptable. Like and I'm gonna own that and I'm gonna apologize. And my hope is that the conversation after alleviates some of the experience that I put them in because I can't take it back, right? But can the next memory I give them from it, can the next conversation that we have change the trauma of like what I almost passed on, right? Because that's really what it is.
No, I'm glad you said that because I think sometimes too, also, as parents, sometimes we also need to just show some self-compassion because
Yeah.
we're all on this journey. Like as a
Yep.
parent, as an individual, as a coworker, we're just on a journey trying to
Yeah.
figure shit out.
Yeah. We are human beings in a hella wild life right now. Like,
Mm,
life is lifing so
mm,
hard. And if we don't give ourselves grace, nobody else is going to give it to us first and foremost.
no,
But like, oh my God, take a break. It's okay. Lay down when you need to. Like, because nothing's getting solved right now. Like, if we're trash to ourselves, if we're trash to our families because we're so burnt out or we're so upset, what quality are we hoping we're providing anyway?
mm,
Right?
mhm,
I'm here for quality over quantity always. And
mm.
like, I want, when I am impacting people, when I'm hoping to be impactful with people, like, connection and community matter to me, right? So like, if I'm not in a space to give it, I shouldn't be in the space. And I
Oh,
hold that for other people too, because I'm like, this is me and you, this is not a thing. I was like, the
mm.
vibe is not right. You're not my people, and I'm okay with that.
I'm glad you said that, sis, because it's like I think providing, or I feel sometimes we feel obligated to show up in the space even when we don't feel it.
Oh yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
giving
That's
ourselves
the,
permission
yeah. Yeah,
not to
that's
participate.
societal expectations shit, right? That's
Mm,
generational stories, that's trauma, that's societal expectations. That's all that noise, all those stories about like, oh yeah, just grin and bear it, smile and nod, play quiet and simple. Like, no. Take up all your fucking space, make all the fucking noise, be exactly who you are. And if they can't accept it, it's not for them anyway. Like,
mm,
they're just
mm.
not your people.
I was gonna say that they're not your tribe. They're not
Yep.
your tribe. Jeez
Yep.
Louisa. Thank you for that. Whew.
Yes.
There's also two other topics I saw here.
Yeah.
Grief mindset. Was there something you wanted to touch on for those two? Because I know you mentioned earlier that you had lost your parents.
Yep. Yeah.
And
So that was, whew, yeah, that was a lot. Like
Mhm.
more, I don't need to like boost my own trauma, right? I'm like, oh, it's more than more people have experienced. No, like, I had this experience very abruptly. I lost my mother, and I was 6 months pregnant, and I had a 2.5-year-old at home. And then 3 days before her 1 year anniversary, I lost my dad very relatively suddenly as well. And then had a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old, right? And life had to continue, and I didn't know what life was anymore, right?
I
And
know how
so
to be.
and now when I think about it in hindsight, right, which is why I love to do the work that I do, but I didn't know who I was before they died, right?
Mm,
And like, that's something I can be really honest with myself right now, right?
wow.
Because I was living my life exactly the way that they wanted me to. So
Mm,
I was just going about my day to day, existing, doing what I thought I was supposed to do, not questioning it because I didn't know any different, right? I
mm,
didn't realize that I was really missing out or had a choice, right? Um, so I don't even know who she was then, right? That's Teresa's a version of whatever that was. And so when my mom died, I was 29. I was 30 when my dad died, um, which are like pivotal moments anyway in like a human being's existence.
yeah.
And so now I've lost the foundation of who I am, right? The creators of my identity are no
Wow.
longer here, right? And that forced me to have to make my own identity. That
Mm,
forced me to have to decide, am I going to keep like crying on the bathroom floor, or am I going to do something different with my life? Am I
mm,
going to remember what brings me joy, or continue to just be sad? Right. And that took me, I signed up for a tap dance class because I used to tap dance when I was a kid. And I was like, I think I liked it. Right. So I just signed up for one.
okay.
And I was like, let's see if this brings me joy. I had a really good time. Right. I'm not gonna be a tap dancer, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Right.
Right. I signed my daughter up for piano lessons, and I signed up for piano lessons too, because I used to play the piano. just because I just wanted to see what felt good again, right? I
Mm.
just wanted to know what could be made of joy, because I was living my life every day in no joy at all, right? I told
Is
my
this,
husband, yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, like in pivotal moments of our lives, like you losing your parents or people like having these midlife crises, are these
Mhm.
like one of the things why people, some of the people go buck wild, is because they're trying to find joy, but they think because they heard Stella got her groove back, that's how they got to do it too. I'm just
I
saying.
think, you know, it, people go buck wild. And I'll be honest, I went a little buck wild too. I lost my damn mind, right? And what I realize now, right? I can't take anything back, right? And do I wish I had made different decisions? 100%. But I
Mhm.
also was surviving, right?
Mhm.
And so I can only give myself grace for trying to survive through something that literally tore me apart, that literally took away every thought I ever had about myself and how I existed in the world. And that's just how their passing it was impactful to me, right? It's different for other people. This could be even the same thing for an estranged relationship with a parent or a sibling. Like, that loss is still tremendous. It still affects people on the day to day. And so for me, I could not sit with my pain, right? I could not sit with my grief.
Mhm.
Um, because I was so used to, well, you just got to get up and go, right? Like, my life was like, okay, but just get up and go. Like, do what you got to do. You got things to take care of. You got people to take care of. And that's how I treated my grief. And so I wasn't dealing with it. I
Mhm.
wasn't understanding it. I wasn't realizing how significant their loss was to me, besides the fact that I was in so much pain and I couldn't share it appropriately. I couldn't get the help that I really needed, um, because I didn't know how to ask for it. And
Mhm.
despite people seeing me in that space, no one knew how to reach me there, right? So that's the reality of it, right? And until I decided, oh my God, I want something to be different, right? That's when I got to, like, okay, how do I find joy again? How do I remember who the hell Teresa is? Right? Because I
What
was like, I'm just a ghost at this point, and I didn't want that anymore.
What does not dealing with our grief or pain look like for some? So that way they know,
Whew.
they can have an idea for themselves, like, oh, dang, maybe I'm in this space that I don't really realize that I'm in.
Yeah. So I'm neurodivergent. So that means I think about things, I process things differently than other people do, right? Like, our brains are just different. And so I always like to say that because I masked a lot. And that is very common for people who are neurodivergent.
Could
So
math.
autistic, ADHD. Yeah. It's kind of like you put on this other persona for other
Got it.
people to, like, protect yourself. And that's how I lived. I used to talk about myself in third person, like in therapy and stuff. And I'm like, oh no, that's Teresa. She's for other folk. Like, they don't like this Teresa. Right.
I
And
felt
I had
like
to
that's
separate it.
code switching, and it's the same thing. It's like we do
Yeah.
it literally in life. We have to not have to, but
Right.
sometimes we have these and we don't realize that that's what they are.
Yes.
Corporate,
Yes.
mom, lover.
Yeah. 100%. It is very much like code switching. Like, 100%. That's what it is. And it's really just about, like, can I, like, so what I used to say to people is, like, I showed up to work one day not masked. And at that time, I didn't have the language. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but I just went and I didn't give a fuck. And I was in no mood. And
Mhm.
people were, like, not okay with it. People were very uncomfortable. They did not like it. And then I went in the next day smiling and I was fine and it was whatever. Cause I had the energy, right? I had the ability to put her back on.
Mhm.
And they were like, "Oh, are you better now?" And I was like, "Oh no, like, so what you don't understand is what you saw yesterday is who I am all the time. This is for you so that you feel more comfortable. Like, I'm exhausted." Right?
Oh,
And she had,
they
like,
must have
no
lost
idea.
it, Teresa.
I was like, you don't want her showing up all day. So I put this on for you, right? Like, and it's exhausting. So that's why, and I wanted to talk about, because I think that that is one way that people will do that with their grief. They'll mask, right? They'll mask really hard. They'll recognize that, like, they're switching on and off, right? I used to tell my husband that, and maybe this will resonate with people, right? So at that time of my life, I woke up in the morning and I was miserable. I got ready and was miserable. I went to work and was miserable all day. I drove home miserable, and then I came home and was miserable until I went to bed. So, like, I had no other experience or feeling besides being miserable. And that, fluctuated between anger and frustration and overwhelm. And I'm sure I had moments of laughter and all that. But, like, I just was miserable all the time. So that was part of the things that I experienced with my grief, and kind of like hiding it. I lied a lot. Like, I lied to the therapist that I went to. And I got my 3 sessions, and I was like, I guess I'm all better.
Get with you, Teresa. I did too.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna tell this girl everything.
Yeah. I was like, I wasn't really vibing with her anyway, so I was like, this is great, right? Clearly, I wasn't. I also recognize now too, even in hindsight, right, that I probably had postpartum, right? Nobody asked me about that. Not a single doctor that I went to was like, I think you might have postpartum. Like, there were no conversations about it, right? And I'm like, my mother died when I had a child inside of me. Like, it's like, that's traumatic, right? That is trauma. Nobody talked about it with me. I don't think, they were like as big buzzwords as they are now. And even the understanding of how generational trauma is passed on to our fetuses, it's like through our DNA. So I think, hiding, lying, excessive use of anything, right, I think is a way to hide shame and hide pain, right? So that's, pick your vice, right? Sex, drugs, alcohol, food, the internet, social media, right? Like, all of if you have to lose yourself in something else so that you can maybe feel something, you need to talk to somebody. You need to have a different kind of conversation with the people who love you. And it doesn't mean you have to share it all, right? Like, it doesn't mean you have to be like, okay, here I am on the top of this roof and I'm going to shout out every terrible thing I've ever done. No, nobody needs that. That's not for anybody but you. You got to process that. You got to give yourself grace. You got to get forgiveness. You got to do all that on your end. But, like, you got to let folk know that you're not okay. Because it's okay to not be okay.
So I was going to say, this is...
Yeah. Go ahead. No, I was just...
I feel like...
Yeah, this is us.
I feel like this is those moments where people are saying, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. And you're fucking terrible.
Yep. Yeah. And, like, do you know who Mel Robbins is?
I love Mel Robbins. High Five Habit. Yes, girl. Yes.
5 seconds. Yes. So did you see her video, like, the most dangerous F word? Have you ever seen that one?
I didn't.
So it's fine, right? That's the most dangerous F word. Yes. Is saying that we're fine, because we're not. We're almost always not. Yeah. But again, this wraps us right to the beginning, right? When you're having a conversation with somebody, do you have the space to hold this for me? Right? Because if you do, then I don't have to tell you I'm fine. But if I don't want to burden you, and I don't want to, make you feel bad when you're having a great day and maybe I'm having a shit day, right? I'll just say I'm fine. And they say, right, what is it? Like, there's this whole thing that I've heard about, right? The majority of times when people ask you how you are, don't actually want to know. It's just like a customary thing that we say to each other.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to live by that. Right. Like, that's just like a bullshit rule I'm uninterested in. Right. Like, if I ask you how you are, I, like, genuinely want to know. And I hope that when you ask me, you want to know it too. Otherwise, don't ask me. Like, we don't have, like, I don't need to do the fake thing. It's cool. Like, it's fine.
Geez, I when I got the awareness to have the conversation about asking people about their day or them asking me,
Yeah.
I would say, okay, do you want the PC version or do you want the real version? And they would stop like, I want the real version. And then I would say, well, my boyfriend just broke up with me. I'm feeling shitty today.
Yeah.
But I love how you said we could also use this in new conversation now about how you doing. Do you have the space to hold it for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is such a beautiful way to almost wrap up into our next conversation.
Yes.
Sister, thank you
Yes.
so much for being on the show. I know we started a little bit late, but it is all
Yes.
good. So
Sorry.
this next portion is like 15, like maybe 10 to 15 minutes, but I just ask you 3 questions, and it is to let the people know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
Guess you think this show is about you.
Yes. Is that the segue music? That's
Yeah. All right. So first question is, what do you think is your biggest failure?
Oof. Damn. Is this one of these random number questions that I picked?
Yeah. That was the
What a
first one. I thought I'd ask it in order.
Damn, what a terrible question I asked myself. What's my biggest failure? I don't like to live in failure talk. Like so language is really important to me, right? I think to be to be really intentional with it, right? So I do view failures as lessons.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna can I reframe it?
Of
In that
course.
answer? Okay. My biggest moment that happened that I wish I did something differently in. Is that fair? Okay.
Yeah.
Is honestly not getting the actual help that I should have gotten and needed right away. And the reason I say that is because I recognize, so my youngest is 14, and I was not a present mother for her for a good chunk of time there, right? Because I couldn't be, right? And thank God I had a good village. Thank God I had family. Like, she was well taken care of. However, I am always, and I tell her all the time, and I was like, man, I just wish I did better for you. And she's amazing, right? Because she's always like, no, you did great. I love you. You're my mom, right? And she's just like amazing. But I'm like, one day she's going to know. Like, one day as an adult, she'll understand really the recognition that she saved my life in that moment. But it took me so long to realize that she saved my life and that I was like meant to do something about that. So I wish I had more space, grace for myself, and maybe should have been locked up. So I could have like got the shit that I needed, right? Instead of just like acting tough and being big and like I knew how to live my life. Like and that's because of her. Like, for her, I wished I would have done that. I think I had to learn my lessons the way I learned them. So
thank you, sis. Appreciate that.
yeah.
The next one's a little bit more lighter. What star?
Okay, let's see.
What star sign are you?
Yes, much lighter. Let's talk about it. So my birthday is July 30th. I'm a Leo. My big 3 is I have Leo sun, Leo moon, and a Libra rising. So I'm a lot, is what I've been told by all my astrology people. Like, they're like, yep, that sounds about right. And so a lot of it is like, yeah, I'm meant to do something here. Yes, I'm a light. Yes, I do all this stuff. But my Libra rising part is kind of like, maybe you should relax a little. It's cool to like step back. So I have constantly conflicted within myself.
Shoot. Sometimes if we're honest with ourselves, we probably all are.
Yep.
The last question is, what character traits do you most respect in other people?
What character traits do I respect? Transparency is super, super vital to me. And that goes along with like speaking our truth, like stepping into that authentic life, right? Um, I also, I'm trying to think if it's like a character. I don't know if it's a characteristic. I want, I respect people who are informed,
Mm,
people who see the world as it is,
mm,
and want something to be different about it. Recognize that like this should not. A lot of the situations that we're in don't have to be this way.
uh-huh.
So I really respect people who advocate and like know what they're talking about
Got it.
in a really like beautiful, fresh perspective. It doesn't have to be my exact perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I can respect people who like come to the world informed and like know what's up and are speaking truth about that.
Got it. Dope.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
sis, I'm gonna check our social media to see if anybody has any questions, and
Yes.
I will pop them in our have pop the question to you.
Yes.
Let me see. Let me see. I don't see anything on here. I don't see anything on here. So, okay. Well, I don't see any questions, sis. But
All right.
once again, I really appreciate you being on here, sharing you with us. And I got to have you on for longer because this was too short, I felt like.
I'm like, we gonna be here for days, y'all. Like, just
Right,
there's so much that we can talk about. But
right.
I'm blessed and honored to know you. Grateful to have the experience to be here with your community and have these conversations. And I just love you. So thank you.
Likewise, sis. Thank you so much. Could you hold on just a second? I'm going to end the live stream.
Yes.
All right, cool.